Welcome to Generation Truth Podcast with Carey and Rebecca Charles, where we declare the Lord is good, His mercy is everlasting, and His truth endureth to all generations. I'm so excited we've got Brother John Tilley back on for a part 2 of really how to know God's call on your life in the ministry. You say, maybe you say, I'm not called to be a preacher. I'm not called to be in full-time ministry necessarily, where it's a job. You get paid to do full-time ministry, but each of us are called to be full-time Christians, and we ought to be serving God in every capacity that He has us to. In your local church, being a help to your pastor and his wife and family, reaching people with the gospel. But specifically, we are going to talk about the second part of really, I'm curious, you told us your testimony of God's call in your life, Brother John,
yes,
but number 2, what steps did you take to start fulfilling that calling in your life?
Yes, sir. As I said, I surrendered to preach when I was 14. As I said, it was the conviction was strong, and I had no question that God had definitely called me to preach.
Yeah.
So if I was going to be a preacher, I wanted to do well at it. Of course,
Sure.
My dad was a pastor, and so I began to hound him on how to study the Bible, how to learn the Bible. He taught me how to use the Strong's Concordance and the Bible Dictionary. And my aunt actually bought me a Strong's Concordance shortly after I surrendered to preach. And I know folks today, we all use online tools,
Yep.
but I had that great big old book and would trace those Greek words and began to learn and study. And I went to school with the ACE curriculum, which offered a lot of college-level Bible courses.
Yes.
So I began taking every Bible course they offered. New Testament survey, Old Testament survey, missions, whatever they had to offer. I began taking those, Life of Christ, and trying to learn as much as I could. So that I could learn to be a better preacher. I began trying to learn how to break sentences down, how to build outlines and things like this.
That's so good.
So that I would be better at delivery.
Sure.
An interesting story, if we have time for it. ACE schools have a convention where you compete. And,
right.
So it'd be like a weekend long or a week long, I can't remember for sure. And we would go and we'd compete, and one of the competitions was preaching. And so I wanted to enter the competition, and I entered the competition, and I took second place.
Hey, there you go.
So I was pretty excited, I took second place. But my dream as a kid, from the time I'd surrendered to preach, and so this was my senior year when I competed, was that I wanted to be the main speaker at the ACE convention.
Oh, my goodness.
And so that year I preached and I took second place. And the next year they called me and asked me to come be the featured speaker.
Oh, my goodness.
And so I came and preached as the featured speaker there at ACE convention. That was just huge for me as a teenager. But yes, began just pouring myself into anything that could develop what I felt God had called me to.
Sure. Yeah. Just taking those little steps of, being faithful where you're at, I'm sure, in your local church, trying to be a help to your dad, and but also getting involved as much as you can. I think this is really interesting. We've talked about this a little bit as well, personally, but both you and I did not necessarily go to a Bible college. We've done more of our studying online or through pastoral, just our dads teaching us a lot through that. Also, we've done a couple Bible institutes and stuff.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And that just, it's encouraging because, yes, the Bible college, I love it. I think it's great for a lot of people.
Absolutely.
But I'm encouraged that, some people, you don't have to. And some people, it works out better for them to get more hands-on training and study for themselves if they can do that, online. A lot of times nowadays you can do a lot of stuff online, so that's a huge blessing. But so really, if you're listening to this episode, maybe God's calling you to preach, young man, and you just, I don't really know what to do. Maybe ACE would be a good resource for you. I know that you and I have both done Faith Bible Institute. That's a fantastic resource as well. Then the one that Kurt Skelly has with Veritas.
Truth Matters.
Truth Matters, yes. Truth Matters. They have a lot of free courses on there that might be a help. Actually, I'm sure it'll be a help to many people listening to that. So those are some steps you took. Let me ask you this question. This is kind of really the overarching question. I know it seems kind of cliche, and everyone knows your answer on this, but maybe break it down a little bit. Has it really been worth it for you to follow the Lord in that calling? And if so, what are some ways that you would say it's been worth it for you?
So that's a good question. Like you say, it feels cliche, but there are pressures to ministry that are sometimes hard to describe.
Yeah.
And so when you say, is it worth it, everyone expects you to just say, of course it has.
Right.
But there's definitely pressures and things that you face. But still, it's absolutely worth it to serve the Lord. There's so many things, and you don't want to focus on material things, but there's so many things that I have been able to do and to experience and to be a part of simply because I was in ministry that I would have never experienced otherwise. I've traveled to many different countries on missions trips and got to meet people and interact with people that would have never happened if I wasn't in ministry. And that's, just how God is so good to you. Also, how has it been worth it? Knowing that everything I do is laying up eternal treasures. There's much that the world offers, and there are times when it can look attractive.
Right.
But the only thing the world can give you is temporal treasure.
Yeah, that's
but
good.
Everything I do in ministry is laying up treasure in heaven.
Yeah.
And so I may not see it now.
Sure.
But I'm going to see it one day. And so absolutely, it is worth it to serve the Lord. Absolutely.
Many times we get so focused on the now because it's what we see, but, the Bible talks about we live by faith and we walk by faith and not by sight. And so, we really should be living for the eternal. You never see, it's funny. My dad, he always used to say, you never see a U-Haul truck behind a hearse.
Exactly.
I actually ended up, we were at a funeral this year, and we ended up in the middle of the graveside service watching a U-Haul truck drive in the graveyard, and I thought to myself, well, that didn't go well. but the principle is still there. You're not going to be able to take anything from here
no, sir. To
heaven except for people. And that's by just simply investing in them, by sharing the gospel, discipling them. And, I tell people, I was talking with a pastor recently, as an evangelist, yes, there's a lot of hard pressures with that as well. But as an evangelist, I come in, I get to preach and try to be a help to the pastor and his family and the church. But then I leave. You're the one that is the one discipling them. You're the one that is coming alongside of them. And you're the one that has to stay with them. And whether they are nice or not, you're there. And so, I really look up to pastors and the ministry that God has given to you because you are having to stay everlastingly at it. And that takes a lot of courage, a lot of boldness, a lot of steadfastness. But that's just God's grace that he gives to us. And so I want to say thank you so much for your ministry and your wife as well. I know she does so much, and that's a huge part of it. But that is something that young people nowadays don't really have a lot of commitment. And I appreciate that about a pastor that sticks with it. And so maybe if you're thinking about God's calling in your life, young person, realize there is commitment to it, but it's always worth it to follow Jesus. Lastly, real quick, what is one piece of encouragement you would give to somebody who's open to ministry, but they don't really know for sure if that's what God has called them to do?
My encouragement would be to serve the Lord however they can, wherever they are. A lot of times we look for the big calling, is you want me to be a pastor or an evangelist or a missionary. And a lot of times that's not clear right out the gate.
Yeah.
But there are many ways that you can serve the Lord where you're at.
Yeah.
And so don't sit on the couch and wait for the big calling, but get busy serving the Lord where you're at and pour yourself into learning. I mentioned some schooling I did as a teenager, but I still take college courses regularly. Yeah. I still pursue learning. I still, try to advance myself and learn more. So I would say that as well. Give yourself to learning, and God will open and close the doors that are needed to get you where you need to be.
That's so good. That is so good. So if you're listening to this podcast, whatever age you are, maybe you're thinking about ministry in the future, we definitely have a harvest that is truly plenteous, as Jesus talked about, but we definitely need some more laborers. And so maybe God's calling you to be a preacher or a pastor's wife or a Christian school teacher, whatever it may be, in full-time ministry, and you're just not really sure. Stay faithful where you're at. Get involved in your local church and give yourself to learning, as Brother Tilly talked about. And maybe you say, I'm not called to be necessarily in full-time ministry, but I do know I'm called to be a full-time Christian. You could do the same thing. Be faithful where you're at. Reach people for Jesus in your work atmosphere, in your school, whatever it may be, wherever it may be. You just keep reaching people with the love of Jesus. He is so worth serving. Thank you so much, Brother John, for being with us.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And let's get to know the truth so we can live the truth, so we can give the truth, because God's truth endures to all generations.